White Swiss crosses on red t-shirts? Jogging? Under Bernini's colonnade? Yes, each military unit begins its day with physical exercises. The Swiss Guard, too. The oldest military unit in the history of the world. For them, the day will begin like a holy mass in St. Peter's Basilica. That's an important day. They will remember it forever. Since my childhood, I have wanted to join the Guard, thanks to my dad, who showed me photos and told me about it. One day, we also came to Rome, and then I knew I would like to join the Guard. Admission into the Guard is hatched with numerous conditions, which are carefully listed by the 100-year-old regulations. To be a member of the Swiss Guard, you should fulfill about 10 conditions. Be Swiss, have the Swiss citizenship, be brought up in Switzerland, have their roots there. Also, you must be a bachelor, Catholic, have a good reputation and good health. You should have done the compulsory military service in the Swiss army, the so-called Rekrutenschule, that is the school of recruits, and have completed vocational education. The candidate shouldn't be older than 30 and meet the requirements of the famous Guard measure, that is to be at least 1.74 centimeters tall. The Swiss Guard plays an important role in my life. I haven't expected that it would be like that. Now, after 3 years of service in the Guard, I know how important it is for me. I recommend the service in the Guard to anyone. Where are the Guards from? The Guard includes only the Swiss, not the Poles, Germans or the French. The Pope needed a personal guard, completely loyal and resistant to plots of European monarchs and aristocrats.
Vor 500 Jahren war der Papst
500 years ago, the Pope wasn't only the Bishop of Rome and the head of the Catholic Church. He was also a ruler, one who needed personal guard. But why the Swiss? Well, because the Swiss, and I can say that as a Swiss, were then the best ones. The Swiss didn't speak Italian. Julius II, the Pope and the warrior, didn't trust his countrymen. On the 22nd of January 1506, 150 soldiers commanded by Caspar von Silenen began to serve the Pope. In 1512, for their heroism in battles with the army of the French king, the Pope awarded them with the title of Defensores Ecclesiae Libertatis, the defenders of the Church's freedom. 15 years later, the day of Sacco di Roma came. Sacco di Roma, that's the pillage of Rome, is a tragic card in history. There were 150 guards at the beginning. During Sacco di Roma, the army of Charles V, mainly from Germany, invaded Rome and captured the city. 147 guards were killed defending the Pope. 42 survived, together with the Pope, thanks to a passage called Passetto, leading to the castle of St. Angel. The army of the Spanish King Charles captures Rome easily. Sacco di Roma begins, the pillage of Rome. Pope Clement VII hides in a castle of Angel. The Guard declares the last battle to the Emperor's army under the main altar of the Basilica. The army of the Catholic king, mainly made of regular Protestant German soldiers, batter the population of Rome. Churches, monasteries and palaces go up in smoke, the city is plundered. Its population halved. The Pope locked in a castle is helplessly watching the agony of the city. Diseases break out. King Charles doesn't try to capture the castle. The Pope might be killed in fights, and then there would be nobody to place the imperial crown on Charles's temples. The Pope is the only person who could do it. The siege of the castle lasts half a year. The Pope runs peace negotiations. The prize? The Emperor's crown for Charles V, and among others, the dissolution of the Guard. "21 years later, the Vatican reactivates the Guard. The Sacco di Roma Day becomes the holiday of the Guard. The day when recruits joining the Guard take their oath to the Pope. The end of the 18th century is another dramatic moment in the history of the Guard. Napoleon's army captures Rome. The Swiss Guard is dissolved once more. Pope Pius VI must leave the Vatican. In 1801, Pius VII appoints the Guard again. The Guard enters the 20th century, revived and strengthened. Commanding officer de Coutin raises the pay, introduces pensions. Guards must complete several additional training courses. He also introduced the minimum height of the Guard, 174 centimeters. The Guard is not the only battle unit in the Vatican. There are also the Noble and Palatine Guards. In 1910, new commanding officer Jules Ripon introduced the reform which is still visible. This is the uniform of the Swiss army. Since the times of Pope Leon X, it has had 154 individual items in the Medicean colours, yellow, blue and red. There's a beret, a stiff and upright collar, and a tunic with 9 buttons. A belt with a buckle of GSP, which means Guardia Svizzera Pontificia. The Swiss Guard. A sabre, trousers, gaiters and black shoes. Red, blue and yellow, Medicean colors. Pope Clement VII was from the Medicean dynasty, the Pope of the time of Sacco di Roma. The present uniform tells the history of the Guard, heroism and sacrifice.
Da gab es noch keine besondere Uniform der Schweizer Garde. Erst der Kommandant Jules
Ripon, serving in the Guard from 1910 to 1921, decided that carnival outfits didn't match the Swiss army. So he did some research of his and decided to design a typical uniform of the Swiss Guard, referring to the tradition of the Renaissance period. Ripon introduced the uniform during the pontificate of a new Pope, Benedict XV. During the First World War, some of the guards receive a call-up to the Swiss army. The remaining 50 guards are not able to assure the Pope's safety. The commanding officer reaches for unusual means.
Und nun haben während einigen Monaten
For a few months, the Swiss Guard were doing their service together with students from Hungarian and German college. They were from Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Czech Republic, and Luxembourg. Austria-Hungary included the area of present Poland. Young Poles could do their service in the Swiss Guard. In the Lateran Museum, we can find mannequins wearing rich 19th century outfits, the uniforms of the Palatine and noble guards. Both units operated together with the Swiss Guard. Pope Paul VI disbanded them. He got rid of all the royal symbols in the Vatican. By the end of 1870, there was a concept of a pope who was also a king. The presence of noble guards until the end of 1870 was justified. Their duty was to protect the pope. Pope Paul VI was brave enough to say, "Gentlemen, go back home because the king is no longer here." The spirit of 1870 cannot exist in 1970. Between St. Peter's Square and the Gate of St. Anne along the street, there's a complex of buildings, the Barracks of the Guards, the only barracks in the Vatican. After nearly 500 years, the Swiss Guard is the only military unit at the Pope's side. The world, when the Guard was established, was light years apart from our world. Everything has changed over this time. The language, technology, customs. The papacy itself has also changed. What is the Guard today? I'm often asked if the Guard is a monastery or a real army. Is it still a modern unit or just an element of tradition? I say always, our service plays an honorable, representative function with beautiful uniforms and Renaissance tradition. It is, however, only 8% of our time. 80% of time is a regular guard service, similar to the role of a regular army unit. The young man at the gate of St. Anne is not only watching, he's informing, he's guiding, but first of all, he's a guard. For sure, there's something like the spirit of the Guard. A Guard is a proud Swiss. We can assume he's prouder than the average Swiss. We form our small homeland here. We are also bound by our service, the service for the Holy Father. Sometimes a guard during his duty in the palace or elsewhere doesn't meet the Pope all week long, but it doesn't change our wish to serve him.
So ist in jedem von uns ganz klar der Wunsch da, diesem Papst zu dienen.
The Swiss Guard is everything for me. Is it a knightly order? Not really. But the Swiss Guard is a religious matter. It should be connected with the Church and the Pope. That's a bit of a folklore as well. Several people who come to St. Peter Basilica don't know what we do at all. They only see the uniform and that's it. In fact, there's also something more to it. We are a community which lives together. We are a family here in the Vatican. Young people most often spend time together. A picnic can be an opportunity to pick up beans in a field of the Vatican's employees. Rome is expensive and offers a lot of entertainment, but the pay in the Guard isn't too high. What motivates young Catholic Swiss to work in the Guard? It was my own decision. I wasn't thinking about it as a career. It just happened. You come here as a young boy and you start service. After 2-3 years, you know what it's like. You experience a lot, you see a lot. Now I'm about to leave the Guard. I will take with me a lot of things which will help me in my future life.
As a
Swiss, I come from a wealthy country, and here in the Vatican, we don't earn much. People in similar positions, for instance, policemen in another country, earn more than we do here. If you hope for a big salary, this place is a wrong address. We don't earn much, but we don't have to pay taxes. We can live in the Vatican, which is very honorable. I think it's more important than to have a lot of money. I'm not interested in money, because I'm here to serve the Pope. I didn't come here for money. With my salary, I can easily live in the Guard. If I had 3 sons and all of them joined the Swiss Guard, I'd be very happy. I wouldn't try to stop any of them. It would be their own decision, but I would be very happy. The courtyard of St. Damasus, the 6th of May, the day of the death. 500 years ago, on the 6th of May in 1527, 147 guards were killed defending the Pope and the St. Peter's Basilica against the soldiers of Charles V. The day in 1527 was the day of death. Today, it's a day of life. In a moment, the chaplain of the Guard will read out the oath formula. New recruits will raise 3 fingers, symbolizing the Holy Trinity. They will solemnly swear the faithfulness to the Pope. Why do young Swiss work in the Guard? If we tried to define motivation of each of them, we could probably find 4 patterns: biographical, spiritual, intellectual, and sports motivation. The biographical motivation means that, for the young Swiss boys from the mountains, it's an incredible and adventurous experience. Another motivation is spiritual. They want to deepen their relation with the papal office. They want to understand the sense of religion in the face of future challenges, the role of the Catholic Church, ecumenism, the dialogue of religions. The third motivation is intellectual. Service in the Guard allows further education, studying Italian, English, IT, and history of art. The fourth motivation is of a sports character. Service here is a difficult duty. Many hours guard, the duties of personal guard, elimination of danger if needed. I promise to keep diligently and faithfully all that has been read to me, so help me God and His saints. At the present moment, we don't seem to have any problems with recruitment, but of course it can change any day. That's why we do have to care about our presence in the media, especially in small regional newspapers. But at the moment we do have enough applicants, also due to the death of John Paul II. Many candidates applied then. The Guard keeps traditions, the tradition of sacrifice, contempt for death, faithfulness. At the same time, the Guard is closed in one cultural and national circle. But the world around is more and more open. The Church is a global institution. It's multiracial and multicultural. Will the same happen to the Guard? Should the Guard become international? Well, some people expect that the new Pope will start reforms straight away. But I don't think it will happen. The Swiss Guard means tradition and unity. We are homogeneous. We all have the same interests, come from the same corner of the world. Making the Guard international, even from a linguistic point of view, would be very difficult. It's the Clementine Hall. In a moment, new guards will stand in front of the Pope.
The
Swiss Guard is a monument of 500-year-old faithfulness and service at any price, even life. It's interesting that this is a kind of personal challenge, because you make a declaration that you're ready to die to protect the Pope. Well, perhaps this Swiss Guard is also a message for the future. It proves that young people can protect justice, peace, cultural heritage, ecumenism, as well as dialogue among religions. We might say that her vocation was to accompany the Pope for 500 years. Nobody has been so close to the Pope for those 500 years as his guards, his Swiss Guards. Another cycle in the history of the Guard started. The sounds of the Guard march will die out. The guests filled with pride will leave. An ordinary service will come, hard, monotonous and responsible. During their off-duty time, new guards will go sightseeing, visiting discos, pick up girls, organize picnics. Young people will be a part of Rome and the Vatican. They will protect the Pope, stand by the altars, guard the Vatican's offices and borders. They will see the great people of this world. The boys will envy them. The girls would admire them. Is there anything that they could miss? I come from Rougein, a town situated in the Alps, in the snow-capped mountains. And I miss these mountains here. I can't go skiing or biking here, or go into the mountains with my friends. I miss nature a lot.